Hey guys, I'm back with an update to my previous video about the increase in pop counts of certain high-end cards. That video explored the idea that altered cards could be responsible for spiking pop counts in recent years. Many of the commenters on that video pointed out that the increase in the pops could just be the result of PSA getting a record number of submissions, in addition to people resubmitting lower grade cards hoping for an upgrade to a 9. This would mean the increased pop counts are just a natural and normal occurrence and not explained by altered cards. I'm a numbers guy, so I wanted to test these theories with empirical data. I was able to go back to my original data set and locate submission amounts for both the PSA 9, Reggie Jackson, and Mickey Mantle cards. So here I'm going to look at the number of submissions for each card at different points in time, as well as the pop counts. I can divide the pop by the total submissions to get a percentage of cards that PSA gives a 9. I'll put links below for my data so you can replicate this yourself. Let's start with the 1969 Reggie in a 9. The earliest data I have is from 2010 when the pop was 30, and there were about 3,400 total submissions of this card to PSA. That means that 0.9%, slightly less than 1% of the cards, came back as a 9. Let's skip forward about 8 years to April 2018. In those 89 months, the pop increased by only 4, yet the number of additional cards submitted to PSA was about 2,250. That means that PSA now is getting very strict, giving out 9s at a rate of only 0.18%, or less than 0.2%. Now, let's look at the questionable period in the previous video between April 2018 and August 2019, when 6 new PSA 9s were graded. In those 16 months, PSA graded approximately 900 submissions. You can see they were getting flooded with them. But the percentage of submissions that were receiving 9s significantly increased to 0.67%, or nearly 0.7% of the cards graded. Let's dive a little deeper and look at expected values. Before April 2018, PSA was giving a 9 at a rate of 0.18 per every 100 submissions. That's extremely low. That means that 9s were coming back once in about every 562 submissions to PSA. If PSA were maintaining that same standard of grading through 2018 and into 2019, then we would expect to see only 1 or 2 new PSA 9 Reggies. Instead, there were 6 new ones. Let's look at the Mantle card. The earliest data I have is from 2013. The pop then was 47, and there were about 4,675 total submissions. That meant that 1% of the cards submitted came back a 9. Now we'll skip forward 3 years to 2017. In that amount of time, the pop increased by 5, and there were about 615 more submissions to PSA. During this period, PSA was giving out 9s at a slightly lower rate, 0.81%. Grading had gotten stricter. In the previous video, I narrowed down a 9-month period in 2017 when the amount of 9s really increased from 52 to 59. PSA took about 360 new submissions during this time, so they awarded 9s at a rate of nearly 2% of all submissions. Like the Jackson, suddenly PSA was giving out a lot more 9s than they had previously. Let's look at the expected values with the Mantle card too. In the 3 years before February 2017, PSA was giving out 9s at a rate of once every 123 cards. But since then, the 9s were being awarded every 51 cards. If PSA had been giving out 9s at the same rate as before, we would have only expected to see 3 new PSA 9s in that 9-month period. Instead, there were 7 new ones. With both the Mantle and the Jackson, we see a somewhat similar pattern. By the middle of the decade, PSA seemed to get tougher with awarding 9s. But clearly they were much tougher with the Jackson. Then, in a period when PSA was receiving roughly double the rate of submissions, a lot of 9s were awarded. A lot more than you would have expected, given their track record in grading over 5,000 of each card in the years before. I'm not sure what to make of this data, but I can think of a few possible explanations. One, that PSA got overwhelmed with new submissions and cut corners in how they graded the cards. 2, that altered cards entered the market in larger numbers in 2017 and 2018, and those got through PSA's system. 3, that PSA made a conscious decision to suddenly relax their standards. I wish there was a more definitive answer as to why the pop counts of these cards rose so suddenly in the last 2 years. Whether you blame it on altered cards or a record number of submissions, I think you could find a rationale to support either idea in the data. I guess the only way we will know for sure is when the FBI examines the submission and consignment records of these new 9s, and maybe we find out who is submitting these cards. As always, I encourage you to post your thoughts and comments below. Why do you think PSA gave out a lot more 9s in the last couple of years? Thanks for watching, and collect what you love.